I'll start where everything fell apart when I met him. It was at Lisa's work event, a fancy evening where everyone dressed like they had something to prove. Lisa had this new energy about her, way more enthusiastic than usual, and she spent an unusual amount of time getting ready that night. Her hair was perfect. She'd chosen her favorite dress. And there was the spark in her eyes that I had not seen in ages. I thought it was nice, really. I figured maybe she was excited for me to meet her colleagues, to finally let me into her work life. We walked in and from the start, something felt wrong. She kept glancing around the room, barely introducing me to anyone before darting off to the next person. I almost had to jog to keep up with her. Eventually, I found myself standing alone, holding 2 drinks and feeling like a forgotten part of the night. Then, out of nowhere, a guy I did not recognize walked up to me, grinning like he already knew me. And later find out his name was Mark. The guy looked a little too confident, maybe a few drinks ahead of the rest of us, and he seemed to be talking more to himself than to anyone else. "So, you re Lisa S+1 tonight, huh?" he asked, like he'd uncovered a great mystery. His tone was casual, but a bit too familiar. I just nodded, trying to figure out what was so funny about it. I said, "Yeah, we'd been married a while." "Ah, married life." He laughed, and shook his head. "See, not say I've got that patience. But hey, I've got someone at work, too. Keeps it interesting. A little secret, you know?" He smirked, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. "She's married, actually. But that just adds to the thrill, right?" There was this flash of realization, a flicker of something too close for comfort. But he did not stop there. No, he kept going. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping, and there was this strange spark in his eyes. "I mean, she acts all innocent at work," he went on, chuckling to himself. "But trust me, after hours, let's just say there's a lot more to her. You'd never guess it from her buttoned-up act in the office. Drives me nuts." I forced myself to laugh. But my mind was racing. Maybe it was just a weird coincidence. Or maybe not. The moment he said it, my mind was already spinning, dissecting every word. But I kept my face neutral, watching him, sizing him up. Mark did not notice, though. He was too deep in his drunken story, caught up in his own smug satisfaction. And I was already wondering, was this her? My wife, Lisa, was private about her work life. But this felt like more than just work secrecy. "Married woman, huh?" I said, keeping my tone casual. "Does not that get complicated?" Mark laughed and shrugged, tipping his glass. "You'd think so, right? But nah. I do not know, she's different. Keeps it easy. Smart, sly, you know? Keeps me guessing." He looked off, his face clouding with what almost looked like pride. "She even has this whole good girl image. But man, you should see her after a few drinks." The air felt tight, suffocating. The way he talked about her, it felt like he was revealing something dangerous. Something meant to stay in the dark. I kept my expression cool. But my mind was racing. Trying to grab hold of the sick, twisting feeling building in my gut. "So this mystery woman of yours," I leaned in, trying to keep my voice steady. "You do not worry about her husband finding out?" He laughed again, louder this time, like I'd made the best joke of the night. "Nah, man, she's got him wrapped around her finger. I do not think he even has a clue. She knows exactly what to say to keep him off her scent. She's good." He looked almost impressed, like he admired her ability to keep this double life going. I felt the world shift. My hands clenched around my glass as I forced myself to stay in the conversation, not giving anything away. If Mark saw a hint of suspicion, he'd sober up, start asking questions. So I stayed cool, nodding along, like I was fascinated with his story. But in my mind, every casual line he dropped painted a clearer picture. A picture I could not look away from, no matter how hard I tried. The private business trips, her sudden fascination with her appearance, those late nights where she claimed she was working. All of it flashed through my head in brutal detail. I was drowning in this new reality, but I kept my face calm. Even as Mark turned back to the bar, satisfied with his drunken confession, he'd already moved on, chatting up someone else, leaving me there alone with his words cutting into me. I could barely breathe as I watched him blend back into the crowd, oblivious to the bomb he just dropped on me. My hands felt numb, still gripping my drink, but I could not even taste it anymore. My mind was already racing with 1,000 questions. Did he know it was Lisa, or was this just some messed up coincidence? For the rest of the night, I stayed sharp, watching her every move. Lisa was busy laughing with her colleagues, that same spark in her eye, like she was in on some big secret. She'd look over and flash me a smile, all casual. But now that smile felt like it was hiding something. Each laugh, each glance had a different meaning now, and I could not stop analyzing every second of it. She drifted over to me after a while, slipping her arm around my waist and asking if I was having fun. Her eyes searched mine, but I gave her nothing, just shrugged and played along. "Who's that guy, Mark?" I asked casually, tilting my head in his direction across the room. Lisa's face did not even flinch. She just laughed lightly and rolled her eyes. "Oh, he's one of the marketing guys. Bit of a loud mouth after a few drinks. Is not he?" She said it so effortlessly, so calmly, like he was no more than a random co-worker. But I could see it right there. A flash in her eyes, just for a second, something guarded. I let it go, playing the clueless husband, but my mind was already on high alert. As the night went on, I noticed she'd disappear every now and then, off to grab another drink or catch up with a friend. Each time, I'd catch myself looking around the room for Mark, checking to see if he was missing too. Sometimes he was, sometimes he was not. But it did not matter, because now, no matter where they were or what they were doing, I knew something had shifted, that everything was not what it seemed. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Every casual interaction between them twisted into something more sinister in my mind. But the worst part was this unsettling feeling in my gut. A feeling that I'd somehow known, deep down, for longer than I'd admit. The lingering doubts I'd ignored for months, all snapping into place now, one after another. That night, on the way home, I could barely hold back. I wanted to confront her, demand answers. But I forced myself to wait. I needed proof. I could not risk her turning this on me, saying I was being paranoid. So I drove in silence. Lisa beside me, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. Like we were still us. When we got home, she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and wandered off to bed. But I stayed up, wide awake in the dark, my mind unraveling every detail. Every piece of our life together, hunting for answers that felt like they'd been there all along. I'd barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's smug face, replayed his words, and heard that mocking laugh. The way he spoke about his married woman echoed in my head over and over, like it was mocking me. By morning, I knew I could not just sit around and let this gnaw at me. I needed proof, something solid that would tell me if this was all in my head, or if Lisa had actually crossed the line. The first thing I did was check her phone while she was in the shower. We'd always been open with our devices. She knew my passcode, and I knew hers. Or at least I thought I did. But when I entered it, it was wrong. 3 times. She changed it. I stared at the screen, feeling a cold dread settle over me. Lisa was not the type to change her password without a reason, and that was the first red flag I could not ignore. I heard the water shut off, and I barely had time to set her phone down before she walked back into the room. Wrapped in a towel, humming like she had not a care in the world. She caught me looking at her phone, but instead of getting nervous, she just gave me this playful smirk. "Looking for something?" she teased, drying her hair. I forced a laugh, shrugging it off. "Just needed to check the time. Must have forgotten your new code." "Oh, did I change it? Weird. I'd been ages ago." She did not even blink as she said it. But there was a glint in her eye that was not there before. She was playing this off like it was nothing, but I knew it was not. All day, I watched her, looking for any excuse to catch her slipping up. She acted normal, casual, almost too casual. Meanwhile, my mind was spinning. I started thinking of all the things I'd ignored. Like those nights when she'd come home later than usual, the frequent business trips she'd suddenly been assigned, and that new burst of confidence she seemed to have. Pieces of a puzzle I had not even realized I was putting together. That evening, she announced she'd be working late again. Another urgent project deadline. She barely looked at me as she said it, already gathering her things and throwing on her coat like she was in a rush. "Do not wait up," she said, flashing me a quick smile before heading out the door. And just like that, she was gone. The second she left, I grabbed my keys and followed her. I do not know what I expected, but I knew I could not just sit at home, wondering if she was meeting him. My heart was pounding as I tailed her car through the city, keeping enough distance to stay out of sight. My mind was racing, wondering what I'd do if I actually found them together. Eventually, she pulled up to a bar across town. Not her office, not anywhere she'd usually go. She parked, looked around as if checking for anyone watching, then slipped inside. I waited in my car, my pulse throbbing in my ears, watching the door. Not even 5 minutes later, Mark strolled up to the bar, glanced around and slipped in behind her. I could feel my stomach twist as I watched it all unfold in front of me. Everything confirmed in that one moment. All those doubts, all those hints I'd brushed off, they all came crashing down on me at once. I'm mistaking it now that I sat there in the car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I kept thinking maybe I'd gotten it wrong. Maybe it was not what it looked like, but I knew. Deep down I knew. After about 20 minutes of wrestling with myself, I decided I could not just sit there waiting for them to come out together. I needed to see this for myself, face them if I had to. Heart pounding. I stepped out of the car, trying to steady my hands as I walked toward the bar. The place was dim, loud, packed with people unwinding from their day. I scanned the crowd, my eyes sweeping over each table, every corner, until I finally saw them. They were tucked into a booth at the far end, barely visible in the low light. She was leaning toward him, smiling, that same bright, lively smile she'd once saved for me. Mark was close to her, way too close, talking in a low voice, his hand resting on the back of the booth just inches from her shoulder. And then, as if it were nothing, she reached out, put her hand on his and laughed softly. My stomach dropped. There was no denying it now. The way she looked at him, like he was her whole world in that moment, was a look she had not given me in months. I felt my legs moving on their own, pulling me closer to their booth. A part of me wanted to yell, wanted to demand an explanation, make a scene. But something in me held back. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe it was the need to see how far they would go, how deep her betrayal actually ran. I stopped just close enough to hear them without being noticed. "Can you stay a little longer tonight?" she was saying, her voice soft, almost pleading. "I do not want to go home yet." He chuckled and took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I've got all night for you, babe. You know that." They were so absorbed in each other that neither of them noticed me standing just a few feet away, frozen in place. I could not take my eyes off them, watching as she looked at him with a mix of excitement and affection that twisted the knife even deeper. It was one thing to suspect it, to imagine she was with someone else. But seeing it, right there in front of me, was like watching my entire life fall apart in slow motion. After a few minutes, they got up, laughing, and headed toward the door, still hand in hand. They backed up, ducking behind a corner as they passed by, her laughter echoing in my ears. She had no idea I was there. No idea her secret was out. I stayed there, in the dim light of that bar, watching them walk out together, as if they had no one else in the world to answer to. And at that moment, something inside me snapped that as I stood there in the bar, my mind raced with a cold, calculating clarity. It was strange. I'd expected to feel rage, maybe heartbreak, but instead I felt calm, like everything had shifted into focus. And I knew exactly what I needed to do. I stepped outside, watching from a distance as they walked down the sidewalk, oblivious to me or to anyone around them. She was holding his arm, laughing freely, her head leaning close to his shoulder. The image burned into my memory, solidifying the betrayal. I knew I had to confront her, but it could not be here. Not in some random bar where she could brush it off, pretend it was nothing or worse. Turn the blame on me. No, this confrontation would be on my terms. And I needed proof, undeniable evidence. Something that would leave her no room for excuses. No chance to twist the story. I followed them at a safe distance, watching as they strolled into a quiet neighborhood a few blocks away. It felt surreal, like I was watching a scene from someone else's life. They stopped in front of an apartment building, laughing as they fumbled for the keys, then slipped inside. I stayed outside, noting the address, the apartment number they entered. Every detail locked in my mind. This was not just a random affair. It was premeditated. She had a separate life here, a place they went together like they were a couple. I stood there for a few minutes, letting the reality of it sink in. She had not just crossed the line. She'd gone so far beyond it, built an entirely new world for herself, and left me in the dark. And I was not going to be kept in the dark anymore. That night I went home cold and methodical. I started gathering everything I needed, bank statements, phone records, every scrap of information I could find to build my case. I could not let her see any signs of this when she came home. So I cleared all traces, placed everything back exactly as it was. But my heart pounded with each small discovery, charges from hotels I'd never heard of, dinners she'd never mentioned, and little unexplained withdrawals that now made a chilling amount of sense. When she finally returned home later that night, her expression was the same. Calm, innocent, her usual look of someone who'd had a late night at work. She greeted me with a tired smile, dropped her purse, and poured herself a glass of wine, not a hint of guilt in her eyes. She'd perfected the act, that much was clear. But I'd seen behind it now, and I knew the truth. I decided then that I would not say a word just yet. I wanted to see how long she'd keep up the charade. How many lies she'd tell me with that same straight face. I'd gather everything, set my trap, and wait until she had nowhere left to hide. And when I finally confronted her, she'd have no way out. The days that followed were excruciating. Every morning I'd watch her go through her usual routine as if nothing had changed. She'd wake up, kiss me on the cheek, and ask about my day's plans, all while spinning her own web of deceit. Each day digging herself in deeper, and I'd play along, acting as if I did not know, keeping my tone casual, hiding any trace of suspicion. The worst part was seeing how effortless her lies had become. She'd glance at her phone during dinner, subtly hiding the screen, or claim she was headed out with the girls when I knew exactly where she'd be. Each excuse, every time she left the house late, added another nail in the coffin. She was so brazen, so comfortable, that it was almost like she wanted to get caught. One evening, as she was getting ready to meet her team for drinks, I decided to test her. She was in front of the mirror, carefully applying her makeup. Her eyes focused, her expression steady, as if tonight was just another routine part of her life. "You going out again?" I asked, casually leaning against the door frame. "Did not you just have a team meeting yesterday?" For a split second I saw it. The flicker in her eyes, a tiny stumble in her composure. But she recovered fast, giving me a playful smile as she zipped up her dress. "Oh, you know how they are?" she said with a casual wave. "It's all about team bonding these days. Mandatory fun." She laughed. And for a moment, I almost believed her. Almost let myself get swept up in her little story. But I knew better now. Well, do not stay out too late," I said, watching her closely. "I thought maybe we could plan something together tomorrow night." She looked back at me in the mirror, her expression softening, as if she was considering it. "I'll try not to. But it might be a late night." Her lie smooth as silk. She left soon after, her perfume lingering in the hallway. And I felt the anger simmer, controlled but fierce. I had been collecting all her lies, all her stories, lining them up in my mind like dominoes. I could see every way she had manipulated me, twisted my trust into her own advantage. And I knew exactly where she was going tonight. Back to that apartment with Mark, where she thought she was safe. Once she left, I grabbed my keys and followed her again. I did not just want proof anymore. I wanted to see her face when she realized it was over, that I had been watching her unravel her own life lie by lie. This time I did not wait outside. I wanted to see everything to be undeniable. I parked around the corner, walked up to the building, and waited until I saw the light in that familiar window flick on. With steady hands, I pulled out my phone, camera ready, documenting everything: the address, the time, the names on the buzzers, everything that would paint the truth in full color. Then I did something that made my pulse race. I pressed record and walked up the stairs. When I reached their door, I stood there, listening to her laughter from inside, carefree, full of life. And then I knocked. The knock echoed down the hallway, loud and final. Inside, the laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by a tense silence. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting. Footsteps shuffled behind the door, and then it swung open. Lisa's face went pale the instant she saw me. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Behind her, Mark was frozen, his expression quickly shifting from surprise to a guilty unease. He looked between us, already piecing together what was happening. But he stayed quiet, almost as if he hoped he could blend into the background and disappear. "Mind if I come in?" I asked, my voice steady, but the anger simmering just below the surface. Lisa stammered, barely able to get out a coherent word. What are you doing here?" "Oh, just thought I'd stop by since you're always working so late," I said, stepping past her into the apartment. My eyes scanned the room, taking in the scattered wine glasses, the dim lighting, and the little details that made it clear this was not some work meeting. This was their place, their hideaway, and every inch of it felt like another betrayal. Mark tried to gather himself, clearing his throat. "Look, man, I did not know did not know I was what?" I cut him off, locking eyes with him. "Her husband? Or did you just not care?" He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He looked to Lisa, almost pleadingly, as if she could somehow fix this mess. But Lisa was still staring at me, her face a mixture of shock and panic. "This is where you've been working late." "Huh?" I said, looking back at her. My voice shook a little despite my best efforts to stay calm. "This is why you've been sneaking around, lying to my face, making up all those excuses." Lisa blinked rapidly, like she was trying to find a way out. And her silence spoke louder than any excuse she could have come up with. Finally, she managed to say, I can explain." "Oh, I'd love to hear it." I crossed my arms, watching her struggle, waiting for the pathetic defense she was about to deliver. She took a shaky breath, reaching out toward me. But I stepped back and she let her hand drop. "It's just things have not been the same between us." She started, her voice trembling. "I felt distant, and I did not know how to talk to you about it. And then I met Mark and he listened. He made me feel." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed in the room. "He listened. That's your excuse. You felt distant. So you decided to start sneaking around behind my back instead of talking to me. This is how you fix things." She looked down, unable to meet my eyes, but I was not done. I turned to Mark, who was standing there, fidgeting, still trying to make himself small. "And you," I said, my voice sharper. "You knew she was married. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you just did not care. Did you?" He swallowed, glancing between us. "Look, I did not save it," I snapped, cutting him off again. "You're both lying, selfish cowards. The two of you deserve each other." I turned back to Lisa, who was blinking back tears now, her face full of regret, but I was not buying it. Not after all the lies, all the nights I'd sat at home wondering where she was, all the trust she'd shattered without a second thought. "I want you to pack your things," I said, my voice cold, final. "I want you out of our home by tomorrow. I'm done." The words hung in the air, heavy and absolute. For a moment, neither of them said anything, stunned by the reality of what they'd lost in their selfishness. And as I turned to leave, I felt a strange, liberating calm settle over me. The truth was out. And I was finally free of her lies. That I walked out of that apartment without looking back, feeling a strange mix of devastation and relief. The truth was brutal, but at least it was out, laid bare for everyone to see. As I got into my car, I realized that for the first time in weeks, I did not feel the constant ache of suspicion, the lies, the doubts, the nights lying awake wondering where she was. They were over. And with that came a strange, hollow calm. When I got home, the silence was overwhelming. Our house, once filled with shared memories and quiet routines, now felt empty, as if she'd already vanished from it. Every little thing I looked at, the framed photos, the clothes in the closet, the mug she'd left on the counter, was tainted by her betrayal. I walked around, room to room, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Each item felt like a reminder of what I thought we had. The love I'd believed was real. I stayed up all night, my mind replaying everything, but this time it was different. I was not searching for answers. I was coming to terms with the truth. The small cracks I'd ignored over the years, the times I'd made excuses for her behavior. All of it made sense now. She'd been living a double life right in front of me, taking advantage of my trust, and I'd let her. In the morning, I finally felt the anger start to rise. A slow burning fire that brought back a sense of control. I gathered all her things into boxes, anything that felt like her, anything that reminded me of her presence in the house. I worked silently, methodically, boxing up every trace of her as if I were clearing out a toxic presence. When I was done, I set the boxes by the door with a note on top. "Pick up your things." We refinished. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. She wanted to talk, to explain, as if there was any explanation that could undo what I'd seen. I ignored it, then another message followed and another. They shifted from apologetic to pleading. Her words desperate, claiming she'd made a mistake, that she could change, that we could work this out. But every word only fueled the anger, reinforcing that she thought she could control the narrative. Manipulate me just one more time. Around noon, she showed up at the door, eyes red, her face pale. She started talking before she even stepped inside. But I held up a hand, stopping her. "Your things are there," I said, gesturing to the boxes. "Take them and go. Please just listen to me," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It was a mistake. I do not even know what I was thinking. I still love you." "You do not get to say that," I interrupted, my voice steady but cold. "Love? Is that what you call sneaking around, lying to my face, hiding some second life? If you loved me, you'd have been honest. But instead, you threw everything we built away for him." She opened her mouth. But for once, she seemed to have nothing to say. There was a silence between us, a heavy, undeniable finality. And in that silence, I felt the last remnants of whatever I'd once felt for her slip away. She'd made her choice, and now I was making mine. "Take your things and leave," I said again, more firmly this time. We redone. With that, I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. I did not wait to watch her go. I did not need to. The door was closed, and so was that chapter of my life that I stood by the door, listening to her footsteps retreat down the driveway. And finally, the faint sound of her car starting. As she drove away, I felt a strange weight lift, replaced by a raw open wound. For so long, I'd been living in her shadow, her secrets, her lies, and now there was just silence. It was both liberating and painfully empty. Over the next few days, I kept my phone on silent, watching her messages pile up without replying. Some were long, desperate pleas. Others were angry, accusing me of giving up too easily. Like somehow this was my fault. One night, she even showed up outside the house, ringing the doorbell at midnight. I watched from the window as she paced, her face a mix of anger and regret, calling my name softly, hoping I'd let her in. But I stayed hidden, invisible, refusing to give her the satisfaction of even a glance. Eventually she gave up and drove away. I thought the worst was over, but then I started hearing from friends. First it was mutual acquaintances asking what was going on between us. They'd heard things. Apparently from Lisa, who was spinning her version of the story before I even had a chance to breathe. According to her, I'd been a distant, neglectful husband, too wrapped up in my own life to care about hers. She painted herself as the victim, cornered into the affair because I'd left her feeling unloved. Like she had no other choice. Hearing that hurt more than I expected. Not only had she betrayed me, but now she was trying to rewrite history, manipulating our friends with half-truths and twisted memories to protect herself. It was as if she could not stand the idea of facing the consequences without dragging my name down with her. One evening, my best friend, Jake, called, his voice filled with hesitation. "Man, I did not want to bring this up. But Lisa's been telling people that things were rocky between you two for a long time, that you just did not care anymore." I gripped the phone, anger flaring up again. So this is what she's doing now? Trying to turn this all around on me. Like, I knew it did not sound like you, but she's pretty convincing. She's got some of the others thinking maybe it was a mutual fallout or, that she was just reacting to how things were. The manipulation cut deep. Not only had she lied to me, but now she was lying about me, trying to take down my character to justify her own actions. But instead of fuming, I felt a grim determination settle in. If she wanted to rewrite our history, she'd have to do it alone. Let her say what she wants. I told Jake, my voice steady, people who know me will see through it. And the ones who do not, well, I'm done caring. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding little by little. I distanced myself from those who bought into her lies, and those who mattered saw the truth in time. I took her number off my phone, packed away what little was left of hers, and started focusing on my own life again. My friends, my work, my future. The biggest step came a week later when I went to see a lawyer. I explained everything. Her lies, her betrayal, the way she dragged my name through the mud. He listened quietly, nodding before asking, "Are you ready to let her go completely?" "Yes," I said, more certain than ever. "It's over." As I walked out of his office, I felt something I had not in a long time. A strange, hopeful peace. The chapter was closing and I was finally free. A few days after meeting with the lawyer, I filed for divorce. I knew it would hit Lisa hard. She had not stopped calling or texting, alternating between apologies, pleas, and accusations. Each message seemed more desperate than the last. Like she was slowly realizing the reality of what she'd done. And filing for divorce meant she could no longer ignore that this was happening, that she'd crossed a line she could not uncross. The news spread fast. Within days I started getting messages from family members, both mine and hers. Lisa's sister, Rachel, reached out first. She had always been a bit of a wild card, but she was one of the few people I could trust to be straight with me. "Hey," her message read, "just heard about everything. I do not know what Lisa is telling you, but I had no idea she was seeing someone else. I'm so sorry, honestly. You did not deserve this." Her message caught me off guard. I'd expected her to defend her sister, maybe even lecture me about saving the marriage. But her words came with a surprising bluntness. Almost as if she'd been waiting to tell me what she thought. I replied, keeping it brief but honest. "Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it. She's been spinning some stories around. So it's been rough." Rachel responded almost instantly. "I'm sure she is. She's always had a way of twisting things to suit her. Just know that some of us see through it. You do not owe her anything, not after what she did." It was strange. Reading her words, feeling a sense of validation from someone on Lisa's side of the family. But it also confirmed something I'd sensed all along, that Lisa's behavior was no isolated act. She'd had this side to her. One I'd ignored or overlooked, thinking it was just her charm or ambition. Over the following weeks, Lisa's desperation only grew. I blocked her number after she left a dozen voicemails in a single night. Each one more frantic than the last. She'd apologize, then rage at me, accuse me of giving up too easily, claimed she could change if I just give her one more chance. But it was too late. I was past the point of return and nothing she said could undo the damage. But Lisa was not done yet. One evening, I returned home to find her standing on my front porch, waiting for me. I almost turned back, but I could not keep running forever. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and approached. The second she saw me, she rushed over. Her face a mix of anger and desperation. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "We can fix this. I can fix this. You're just throwing everything away over one mistake." "One mistake?" I shot back. My voice cold. Steady. "One mistake is an accident, Lisa. What you did was a choice, a series of choices. You lied to me, you hid things, you built an entire life behind my back. And now that you're refacing the consequences, you're retrying to twist it all on me." She looked taken aback, like she had not expected me to be so blunt. But I held my silence long enough, and I was done letting her control the narrative. "Why could not you just talk to me?" I asked, the questions slipping out, carrying the hurt I'd buried beneath the anger. "If you were unhappy, why not tell me instead of tearing us apart like this?" She opened her mouth, struggling for words, her face softening with something that almost looked like remorse. "I do not know," she whispered, looking away. I did not want to lose you." "Well, you did," I replied, my voice low, final. "And that's on you." She started to say something else, but I held up my hand. "Lisa, it's done. There's nothing left to talk about. You need to move on." "I know I am." With that, I turned and walked inside, closing the door firmly behind me. I heard her footsteps retreat after a few moments, fading into the night. For the first time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground again. Her chapter in my life was finally closing, and the weight of it was finally lifting. I was free, truly free. After that last encounter, I did not expect to hear from Lisa again. I set my boundaries, made my stance clear. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had my life back. The days started to feel normal again, quiet, but stable. I found new routines, even started seeing friends more. Rebuilding parts of my life I had not realized I'd let slip away. Then one evening, just as I was settling in with a book, there was a knock on my door. It was late, and I was not expecting anyone. My first thought was that Lisa had come back, ignoring every word I'd said. I sighed, bracing myself for yet another confrontation. But when I opened the door, I was met with an entirely different face. It was Mark. I stood there stunned for a few long seconds. He looked as rough as I felt. His hair unkempt, shadows under his eyes. He shifted nervously on my porch, clearly unsure how to start. I could feel the anger welling up immediately. The last person I wanted to see, the one person who had managed to destroy everything, was now standing on my doorstep as if he had something to say. "What the hell do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice low, controlled, but barely. He took a deep breath, his eyes avoiding mine. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now. I get that. But I needed to come here." He hesitated, glancing down at his hands. "I just wanted to tell you. I did not know you. I did not know who you were until that night. And if I'd known, I would not have." "Oh, save it," I interrupted, shaking my head. "You did not care. You both knew exactly what you were doing. So why are you here now?" Mark winced, looking almost guilty. He ran a hand through his hair. Then met my gaze. "Because I owe you an apology. I know that does not mean anything now, but I messed up. And Lisa," he trailed off as if he could not finish the thought. "Lisa lied to me too. She told me things about you that made me think it was okay, that you were checked out, that you did not care. She made it sound like the marriage was over, that she was just waiting for the right time to end things." I scoffed, crossing my arms. "So that's your excuse? You were just waiting for your chance." "No, it's not an excuse," he said quickly, looking down. I guess I wanted you to know the whole picture. She told me she'd leave you, that you were practically out of her life already. I thought I was, I do not know, filling a void. It is pathetic, I know. I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, bitterness, even a twisted sort of relief. So she lied to him too. Created her own little fantasy world where everyone was disposable. But I was not about to let him off the hook that easily. Whether she lied to you or not does not change what you did. I said sharply. You still went along with it. You saw a married woman, and instead of walking away, you jumped in without a second thought. That's on you, Mark. He nodded, taking the rebuke without argument. I know, and I'll live with that. He looked up at me, his expression almost pleading. I'm sorry, all right? I needed to say it in person. I do not expect forgiveness, but I wanted to own up to it. For a moment we stood there, both of us locked in the same wreckage Lisa had created. Each of us left with a different cut from the same blade. I wanted to hate him, to shove him off my porch and out of my life for good. But looking at him, I saw something that struck me. He was just another fool who'd been caught in her web. Another pawn she'd used to get what she wanted. He was guilty, yes, but he was also broken. And that, in some strange way, made me feel a little less alone. Fine, I said, stepping back. You've said your piece. Now leave, and let us both move on. He nodded slowly, looking as if a weight had lifted from his shoulders. Thanks, and I really am sorry for all of it. I closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a long, steadying breath. The first time, I realized that Lisa had not just betrayed me. She deceived everyone in her life, leaving a path of destruction wherever she went. I was finally free of her games, and somehow knowing I was not the only one who'd been misled, manipulated. It eased some of the sting. Mark left that night, and I knew I'd probably never see him again. I was finally ready to let go of the anger and start rebuilding, piece by piece, a life that was fully my own. After Mark's visit, something shifted in me. I felt a strange sense of closure, the betrayal, the lies, the anger. All of it had reached its peak and was starting to dissolve, leaving something clearer, something simpler behind. I was done with her lies, done with the questions, done with looking back. I could finally start looking forward. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into rebuilding a life that had nothing to do with Lisa. I reached out to friends I had not seen in months, even years, friends I'd drifted away from while trying to keep up with her hectic, chaotic lifestyle. I poured energy into my work, picked up old hobbies that had gathered dust, and spent more time with family. I even started going to the gym again, pushing myself in ways that reminded me of who I was before she'd come into my life and turned it upside down. At first, there were small, unexpected pangs. That's where I'd reach for my phone, almost instinctively, to tell her something or glance at the empty side of the bed and feel a rush of loneliness. But over time, the feeling started to fade. Each day, I felt myself growing stronger, more confident, slowly regaining the person I'd been before her deceit had clouded everything. Then one afternoon, as I was sorting through some old boxes in the attic, I found a photo album from our early days together. There we were grinning at each other, hands locked, faces full of excitement and promise. I stared at those photos for a long time, studying the details. I realized that I did not recognize those people anymore. The man in those photos was naive, too trusting, blindly optimistic. He had no idea what was coming. No way of knowing that the person he loved would betray him so completely. But there was no anger, no regret in looking back. I felt a quiet acceptance. A sad understanding that sometimes people change and relationships decay, even when you give them everything you have. Instead of throwing the album away, I packed it back into the box and pushed it aside, realizing that it did not hurt anymore. It was just a story I'd lived, learned from, and could finally leave behind. That night, I sat down and wrote out everything I'd been through, every painful truth and hard-earned lesson. I wanted it there in writing, something to look back on as a reminder of how far I'd come, and of what I would never settle for again. As I wrote, I felt a strange sense of pride. I'd been through hell, but I'd come out the other side stronger, clearer, and finally truly free. In the weeks that followed, people noticed the change. Friends commented on how I seemed lighter, more at ease, like a weight had been lifted. I'd smile, nod, and let them in on the truth. I'd found peace, the anger and hurt no longer defined me. I was finally my own person again, and for the first time in years, I felt ready to start fresh, to open myself up to new experiences, new people, maybe even new love. Months passed, and the pieces of my life started falling back into place. Every day felt lighter, freer. As if I'd finally shed a weight I did not even know I'd been carrying. I no longer thought of Lisa or the betrayal. They were relics of a past life, locked away in memories that no longer held power over me. One afternoon, while out grabbing coffee, I ran into an old friend from college, Emma. We had not seen each other in years, but talking to her felt natural, like no time had passed at all. She'd heard about the divorce through mutual friends, and for a moment, I felt a familiar awkwardness, that lingering reminder of everything I'd been through. But Emma had a way of making it easy, focusing on where I was now, on the future rather than the past. By the time we'd finished our coffee, I realized I was genuinely enjoying myself, laughing in a way I had not in what felt like ages. That day turned into a series of easy, casual meetups. We'd go on walks, grab dinner, talk about life, hopes, and things we wanted out of the future. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people reconnecting, both changed by life in different ways. One evening, as we sat on a park bench, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Emma turned to me, a gentle smile on her face. "You seem different," she said, her voice soft, happier, lighter. I thought about it for a moment, letting her words sink in. She was right. For the first time, I was not haunted by memories, by betrayal or anger. I'd found myself again, someone I had not been in years, someone I liked. I smiled back, a warmth filling me that I had not expected to feel again. I replied, feeling the truth in my words. I finally let go, and I'm ready for whatever's next. Emma reached out and took my hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. We sat there, silently, just two people sharing a moment, unburdened by the past, open to the future. In that quiet stillness, I felt something I had not in a long time. A sense of hope, of possibility, of new beginnings. I did not know where things would go with Emma, or even if it would turn into something more, but I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer defined by my past. I was free, ready to step forward, and whatever came next, I was finally ready to embrace it.